There we go. Oh, wow. So
Here
I
we
saw you.
are,
I guess you.
both sides
Yes.
now. I'm Jane Stahl.
And I'm Yergz.
I thought maybe we would start with that this time
Try
instead
it
of
and
getting to it at the
do
very
things
end of the
differently.
Well, we can do it both ways, but anyway,
Well, we still do the like our own plugs and whatever,
yeah.
towards the end. But uh yeah, do the greeting right away this time. That's a first. This is episode what? 6?
5.
5.
Isn't it 5? I think it's 5.
No, because we had 3 in and then we did 2 last week,
Oh, that's right. That's
right?
right. That's
Yes,
right.
this is 6.
Episode 6. And we'll hope to get it right. But one of the things we keep promising ourselves to talk about is, the meaning of the title. I mean, I told you a little bit in one of our earlier episodes where
Right.
both sides now came from. What my husband always says about himself. But what we had thought at the beginning, at least as I remember, is that this would be more we would be in what? In different camps more than we seem to be. That it might be more of a debate between, we who are kind of on opposite sides of chronology and gender and, all kinds of things. And yet it seems, and I think you mentioned it in one of our later, more recent episodes, that, we seem to be agreeing about more things than disagreeing. And so
Mhm.
possibly what both sides now has turned out to be is a realization that from both sides, because, I'm today hard and fast, probably Democrat, liberal, progressive, all those dirty words. And have said that you're pretty much a conservative. But even though we're different, even though we're different in a lot of ways, we from both sides then from these opposite sides we kind of end up agreeing with a lot of different things, so maybe that's a new take on the title of what we're doing. Just a thought.
Yeah, so I'm both, and that's why I don't like to be called or identify or whatever as a conservative or a liberal, because I'm, depending on the issue, I'm either.
Yeah.
I'm pro Second Amendment. I'm from a family of hunters. I only went hunting like once or twice with my dad as a kid because it just wasn't me. I think I have more the Ron White uh, Ron White approach on hunting. It's not because I like to get my meat, from a grocery store. It's because it's too early, it's too cold, and it's raining, and I don't want to effing go.
I tell you what, you and my husband would get along just really well. He went hunting once. He said he drove 3 hours to get there, and they ended up anyway, they ended up eating their ham sandwiches when they got there and went home and shot cans off a fence or something like that because it was too cold, because it
Yeah.
was too early, because it was too something. So he would
Yep.
agree with you there. But since we're on the topic, and maybe this is a place where we don't agree, I mean, where do you stand on? I mean, I'm certainly, hunting, yay. Okay. And not yay, because killing animals doesn't appeal to me, but I understand why the deer population needs to be thinned and all that. Still, I feel for Bambi. Um, where do you stand on rifle ownership for regular citizens? Non-military,
It's
non-military. Where do you
yeah,
stand on that?
it's
To me, it's
just
ridiculous.
because any gun can kill, and I don't need an assault rifle to kill someone. I can do it with a little pocket derringer.
Or a pencil.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've trained in that too, actually. So I think when you start limiting things that are too close to a gray area, I mean, do I need to have it as a citizen or civilian? Do I need to have it fully automatic? Do I need to have it mounted on the back of my pickup truck? No, I'm not going to defend anything or go hunting with anything with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think once you start limiting something, and there's the only argument that I've heard, even with how often they're used in school shootings or any public, arena. And I guess the way some of these people look at it because of the video games or what have you, arena is probably a poor choice of words because some people think this is a game.
Mm-hmm.
But um, it's a dangerous and slippery, and I'll even say inappropriate slope. The only thing that the left has said for really supporting assault weapons bans is that you don't need it. Who the fuck are you to tell me what I need? And that's when the right, Ron DeSantis, comes back and says, you don't need that book,
Mm-hmm.
whether you think it's accurate or not, even though it was. And so I think that the thing that the Second Amendment people, we Second Amendment people, have been doing poorly, very poorly, is policing ourselves. We want because I'm not for this much, but they wanted so many rights. Like Florida now has open carry within the past 6 months with no permit. You don't need any sort of license to openly carry a gun in the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't 1823, it's 2023. And I've lived it. Some of these people carrying a gun don't know which way to shoot it or point it, let alone really how to behave in any sort of tactical manner to a point where they could actually save anyone's life. So I'm all for, when I was a federal agent and even a local police officer, I was tested with not only the maker model, but the actual weapon that I carried. And that gun followed me for my whole career. And these people just, no, I'm a big shot now because I carry a gun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That makes you a big target, not for the fact that you're carrying a gun on the street.
I think you make a good point about slippery slopes and gray areas and whatnot. Maybe we can just tell Governor DeSantis to, to say, all right, so um, there are no restrictions. Anybody can carry whatever weapon they want. And in exchange, anybody can read whatever they want. So hands off the guns and hands off the books. How does that sound?
And the drag shows
And all that. Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I
Fair is
love
fair.
that. And the actual I realized I paused and I didn't finish the thought there. The
Oh, I'm
place where
sorry.
you're a target is in a courtroom because you open your, and that's why I learned to kill somebody with a pencil. I tell Zach to take a one of my longer umbrellas with him in the car. Oh, I thought it was going to rain today.
Mm-hmm.
You can screw somebody up with that hardwood handle on the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
or that might be a softer metal, but still a metal point on the front of it. Or even more appropriately, defend yourself. Use it to block from somebody else striking you. Um, but yeah, the slippery slope is. I'm my critique of the Second Amendment people is that they're all big on the Second Amendment, but forget about the first, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, the tenth, and all the others, probably because most of them can't count that high.
That's a
And
little extreme.
It's just me being the wise ass. And that's what I say about
Got to be
Trump right
you.
now, and the 14th Amendment is that
Yeah,
they can't count that high,
yeah,
or, or
yeah,
or read when they get there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm finding on, not to segue and change topics, but that's what I'm finding on that demographic, is that they're not bright people. The ones that are left in his camp are not bright people, and that's sad, because these are the people that need to be led and helped, and all the programs that the Democrats have are for those people. But we were talking about the drag shows and essentially sexuality.
Right.
I'm fascinated with the fact that who I've been referring to as Bobo, Lauren Boebert,
Oh, yes. Okay.
was one of the ringleaders of the anti-drag movement and the uh, sexual morality. And there she is in a public theater, literally a
What was
theater.
what was she thinking?
She wasn't at all.
Ah,
But I mean, you want to talk about sweet irony, not just irony, but some sweet
oh,
irony. The guy she was with
oh no.
is a
Owns?
bar
Tell me
owner
he owns. Oh no.
that hosts drag shows.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is sweet irony. That is for sure. Yeah.
What is that saying? You can't make this stuff up.
No, this is for sure. But getting back to sexuality for a second, not that I am interested in beating a dead horse, and the wording there is probably not the best I have ever uttered. But one of the things that I
That's
wanted to
that's
talk
what I
about
said in the
today.
text message last night.
Okay.
And
Anyway,
I couldn't wiggle into it, but I think after only 6 episodes, we have not beaten any dead horse yet.
okay, good. All right, good
So
point.
go ahead.
Anyway, one of the things I wanted to do at the start of our episode today was to once again invite folks to give us feedback. And
Yeah.
happily, we do have some. You know, one of our listeners listened to our program that probably dropped on Friday. Friday. That was the
It would
sexuality
have been
one,
the
I think.
second one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and added some different ideas that I thought were kind of interesting, and fed into a book I wrote years ago that I think you might be
That you wrote.
interested. I did. I
I'm
did.
sitting
I
here with an author.
Yes, it was not published, however. Now, Bantam Books, when I sent a chapter or so, or a summary or something, I can't even remember because it was back in 1982. Anyway, when I sent a piece to Bantam Books, they wrote back and said, "Ah, really witty, really insightful, but we don't have room on our list at this time." I mean, I took that as a win.
Yeah.
And a few months later, or the year, or probably a year later, I guess I can't remember anymore, but sent it out again to some agents, and one guy wrote back and said, "Hey, we'll publish this for you," you know. And I said, "What do you mean you'll publish it for me?" That was before self-publishing started.
Yeah.
I'm that
Right.
old. Anyway, and at the time I thought, nah, I have teaching to do. I can't be bothered with this. So I just let it go. But it was fun, and it was about gender roles. It wasn't about sexuality. It was about gender roles, which I think is kind of an interesting thing. And one of the things one of our listeners talked about, he wanted to know whether men should still be the breadwinners and women
Oh
the
yeah.
caregivers. And what he did prior to that question was he talked about that some men have more what is traditionally feminine qualities, and some women have that, and it has nothing to do with gay or straight or anything, but
Mm.
some women display more traditional masculine qualities, and some men display more traditional feminine qualities. And what he brought up, I thought was interesting. He said, and I'll quote from his email to us. he said, the only thing I've been able to come up with is the possibility, and it may or may not be fact at this point, but I'm just not aware of it, that the same gene that controls one's sexual orientation or gender related physical characteristics doesn't that gene doesn't necessarily control the strength of one's emotional reactions. That's another gene. So are there genes for gender? Are there genes for emotions? Are there
Yeah, because
genes?
I
Yeah,
know plenty of gay guys to say that, for so many people that you're right to say that it's not necessarily tied to sexuality, because I know so many gay guys who are the biggest queens you could ever meet, and I know straight guys who are stay-at-home dads. And uh, two examples that come out. One was not a stay-at-home dad, but do you remember a student you probably would have had, younger than me, by the name of Chad Meitzler?
I
Is
remember
his
the
name Santa?
Meislers. Yeah.
Um, his father passed away when they were in elementary school from an accident, I think, at Martin Stone Quarries. Um, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
But his he was friends with my brother in elementary school, and I remember, Randy coming home one day and saying, his friend from school's dad died. His stepfather, when his mother, began dating again, was a guy named Keith Eck, hunter, beard and mustache, beer drinker, NASCAR fan, one of my dad's assistant football coaches.
Okay.
He made dinner every night. And
Yeah.
that was the rule in the house. He was the cook.
Hmm.
And when I learned that, I thought, well, I just turned and looked at Cindy, and she said, "I'm not allowed," and that was it. One of the hosts on Yergz Radio, I just stuttered mentally, and I had to look at my screen to read Yergz Radio, the name of my own station. Um, the show Your Two Dads. Uh,
Yes.
Corey from Your Two Dads is a stay-at-home dad, and all three of those guys from that show are all vets. Um, saw combat and what have you, and Corey's a stay-at-home dad, and otherwise you'd never. I wouldn't have thought that.
So, from both sides now, then, I mean, should, as my writer said, should
Mm.
men still be the breadwinners? Not necessarily. And
I
should
yeah, this
women
is. I
still
guess
be the
this is.
caregivers? Not necessarily. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we
This
both
is
agree
more
on that,
the
right?
liberal side for me. Yeah. Um, I mean, I think here's another really good example. I'm in um it's not Langley, whatever the area of Virginia is near the CIA headquarters, McLean, Virginia, in some rich guy's backyard at a Hillary Clinton fundraiser event. And I'm standing in we're all trying to hide because it's a nice place, and they know we're there, but we're not supposed to look like we're there, kind of
Right,
thing.
right, right.
So I'm standing in this guy's flower bed and hiding behind a tree, just kind of
Hmm.
like looking and trying to blend in, and maybe a little too literally. Maybe if I was just standing there, I
Hmm.
would have blended in a little better.
Hmm.
But the owner of the place comes over to talk to me, and I'm thinking, oh shit, he's going to bitch at me for being in his flowers.
Hmm.
And he just walks up to me and says, "Oh, it'll be nice to have her back again." Now this was when I was with her permanently and during the 2008 campaign. He says it'll be nice to have her back again. And I'm like, "What do you mean? Are you from New York?" Meaning, like, as like a senator. He goes, "No, no. She was the brains behind Bill's administration."
Wow.
And this is like a Washington insider type guy. He would say something like that because he knows what he's talking about. And he just, flat out said, he was the brains behind, or she was the brains behind Bill's administration. And think about it. She, as first lady, as a sitting first lady, literally got laughed off of Capitol Hill
Mm-hmm.
when she went up there and said, our nation's health insurance is in a shambles
Mm-hmm.
and something needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, it's
Yeah.
called Obamacare.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not finished yet. Maybe there can be better renditions of it. But of course, now I'm seeing about how a bunch of Trump supporters have lost their Medicaid. Shocker.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but at minimum, what she got laughed at and took that bullet for, 20 some years, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, is now the law of the land.
How about
Helped
that?
my parents get better health insurance than what they had when they were employed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not. I wish I could find a breadwinner so I can just support us partially with the pension and
That would be
make
good, huh?
things.
That would be good. So we agree then
Yeah,
that,
on that one.
yeah, on that one. So
I
let
mean,
me tell
I
you a
guess
little
that's
bit.
kind of the same thing with the gun statement that I made earlier. It's
Okay,
2023, not 1823.
there you go. Well, I think of those countries where you see men on the street brandishing their assault weapons. I mean, all over,
Yeah,
and open carry laws really, that to me is a slippery slope. Okay.
yeah,
When
yeah.
you allow that, then you're allowing for, the kind of scenes I see in third world countries. Anyway,
Or
I want
our
to tell you
or
about,
our
go
old
ahead.
Wild West.
There you go. Yeah. So anyway, I want to tell you about my book. Okay.
Yeah,
Because you'll laugh. It's funny. It was entitled The Magic Wand Theory. Okay. And
that's
you
the whole
may
book.
remember, pardon me,
But I mean, that's the
that was
title of the book.
the title of the book was The Magic Wand
Okay.
Theory. And it came from someone you may remember from West, from junior high West, Debbie Idle. She taught math.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
Well,
Scott
the
was only a couple
story,
months older than me.
well, there you go. Anyway, the whole idea for the book came from Debbie Idle, who used to complain. She'd come to school in the morning and complain that she was up at 11 o'clock washing up the kitchen floor, and her husband Ralph was sitting in his
Mhm.
chair reading the paper. And she told the story that Ralph told her, Debbie, you have to quit complaining, and you have to realize that I have a magic wand and you don't. And therefore, I get to read the paper while you wash up the kitchen floor. Okay? Now, obviously, you know what the magic wand is, of course.
I was just kind of snickering. Is he referring
Yes,
to what I'm thinking he's referring
yes,
to?
yes. I see you smiling with a snicker in your smile. And yes, the magic wand is exactly what you think it is. And
Oh,
so, and so, I just found it outrageous, and kind of so did she, that he would admit to that. But it's true. I mean, the magic wand allows the male gender, or allowed the male gender, certainly 20, 30 years ago, to certain privileges and rights and so forth. And because some of us, half of us, 51% of us, did not have a magic wand, we were limited to some degree. So that's kind of what my book was about, to elucidate the magic wand theory. And what I did in the book was to observe my friends who were coupled, my male female couple friends, to see how
hmm
the magic wand operated in their lives. And every chapter of my book was about a couple, and which of the women chose to cook, and if they did not, what they chose to do instead, and how that affected their whole relationship. So anyway, the magic wand theory. Now there is I developed on my own the kept woman corollary to the magic wand theory. And the kept woman corollary merely states that as women, our privilege was that we got to decide whether to work full time or part time or not work at all and stay home with the children, or not even the children to volunteer with the local art league. And no
But did
one
you
back
really
in
get
the
to make that
day,
decision? Did you
no
really
one
get to
back in the
make that
day would fault
decision?
us for that, but they would fault a man for not having a full-time job. So that's the
Yeah.
kept
Oh,
woman
yeah.
corollary. Okay.
Yeah. But did you
And
really get to make that decision though, or was there the whole magic wand being suggested that maybe we should have two incomes?
well, that came a little bit later. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no question that today, surviving on one income. And I kind of lobbied for that after my son was born, but there was no way because Paul was in business for himself. There was no way he was making enough money to sustain our lives. And so that anniversary, maybe I told you this before, that anniversary, he brought me flowers and candy and took me out to
Oh
dinner.
no.
And yeah. And so I decided, all right, I'll go back to work, which was a relief, which was a relief for him. But I had a lot of fun with the magic wand theory, interviewing, or not interviewing. I just observed my
That keeps the
friends
ear to the
in
ground.
their
Wow.
relationships
Sneaky.
because what those theories, and it went beyond the magic wand. What we come into in a relationship is a set of assumptions about what the relationship should be. We come to it with assumptions. We come to our relationships with expectations. And those assumptions and expectations are where the rubber meets the road, where things get dicey, where one person doesn't have the same assumptions or expectations as another. And so what my book was looking at trying to figure out, observing the expectations and assumptions that each of my friends had about their partners. I invited Johnny Carson. I wanted to go on the Johnny Carson show at the time. Or no, it was David Letterman. I wanted to go on the David Letterman show at that time. So I wrote to David Letterman and said, hey, I've got this really cool theory. And much like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, let me bring a couple of couples with me to your show, and we can discuss the assumptions and expectations and the magic wand theory and the operation, how it causes conflict in the relationship and how they manage the conflict and so forth. I sent him a photograph of my pool and thought, you can come down for a weekend. It would be great. And we'll have this discussion and then I'll be on your show. So he didn't
Did you hear
respond
back?
to that one. No, I didn't hear back. But I went to his show one time and took shoe fly pies as a gift.
Nice.
And he did call on me in the show at that particular time, and I told him I had these shoe fly pies for him, and that I would be delighted to make sure that he enjoyed them. They were from Pennsylvania German country. So anyway, I've had
Oh,
fun.
very cool. I wrote to Howard Stern once, but never heard back, and that was the extent of it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I
I
didn't
also
pursue it
sat on
much.
hold for like
Yeah.
an hour while he talked to Andrew Dice Clay.
Ah,
Yeah, like I
very
thought I was
good.
actually going to be, a call that I was actually going to be taking while he's there sitting to one of the hottest comedians at the time.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Anyway,
But with the,
so that's what I thought I would talk to you a little bit about. But do you think there's still much stigma about men not having full time employment?
I think that one, I think it depends on where you're at. A stay-at-home dad is going to be much more accepted socially in like San Francisco than it will be here in rural Florida. Even in the more liberal Tampa area.
Hmm.
And also with, for lack of better terms, how you're doing. Like, is your family struggling financially and you're still a
Okay.
stay-at-home dad?
Yeah.
Then you're going to look lazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
he's still playing the magic wand theory at that point, that's when mom, the lady of the house, needs to say, you might have the magic wand, but I've got the magic hat, and where the rabbit sits inside or whatever.
Yeah. 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 Well, that interestingly enough, my husband took a sabbatical, 2 year sabbatical. during our relationship. And that
From his own
anniversary,
business?
pardon me?
From his own
He sold his
business?
business. He sold his
Oh,
business. He sold his
okay.
business and then, decided he needed some time off, which stretched into a couple of years while he renovated our house, which I love,
Okay.
and I supported that. But after a while, for our anniversary that year, I bought him a Hershey, a Snickers bar and some deodorant and a potted plant to duplicate what he had done for me a number of years ago, so I would go back to work. So I gave him some hints that maybe it was time for him to go back to work. Now, listen, where are we time wise? We promised our listeners only
Yeah.
30 minutes of us. Are we
Should
good?
we're right at 30, so we should probably wrap this up and move on to
Okay.
episode 2 for the week.
Yeah, well, let me just say this for episode next, whatever it is, 7, I guess. For episode next,
Right.
I want to go back a little bit to our previous episode to talk a little bit more about literature as practice living and stories can save us so that I can credit the author of a particular book. And then I also want to talk in the next episode, if we have time, about because it touches on one of my absolute favorite theories that I didn't invent, but one of my favorite theories. It's Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. That was one of the highlights of my graduate career, and I used it all the time in my teaching. And I'm pretty sure the students, they would get quiet when I talked about it and ask them how they felt about it and where they stood on that ladder of moral development. Anyway, I think it will be an interesting conversation. I think you'll like it. I'm anxious to
Definitely.
share it with you. Okay.
Definitely. Where can we find you until then?
You can find me on Spotify. My Be Inspired podcast is on Spotify. And if you're a reader instead, you can find some of my thoughts and articles in the Boyertown Area Expression. That's a new
Nice.
digital news site that one of my teaching colleagues and I started a little over a year ago. So there you go. How about you?
How many listeners or how many subscribers does that have? Do you know?
Oh, do you want to know? We just crossed 600.
Wow.
So I
Very
mean, that's
cool.
10% of the Boyertown population. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's not bad.
And
Very
of
cool.
course, you can, beyond being a subscriber, and I encourage folks to subscribe, but you can find the Boyertown Area Expression online at boyertownareaexpression.town.news. And we encourage you to subscribe. I had the best time, I have to tell you. It was Pickfest weekend in Boyertown, and I had the best time at the Culverdale Railroad. Once I
Oh, wow.
walked beyond the ticket booth, I was blown away. It's absolutely beautiful. Oh, maybe we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah,
Anyway, there's an article
definitely.
and lots of photos today on the Boyertown Area Expression about my experience at the railroad yard on Saturday. So you
My,
can get a taste
my
of it. Look in there.
my dad, not to be a Debbie Downer, but my dad knew the guy that I think Leslie wrote about from the DC Sniper.
Oh, my brother graduated with him. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Dean
yeah,
Myers. Yep. Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Okay, we should go.
But anyway, I'm at anywhere, anything you want to learn about me is at yergz.com. The podcast, both sides now. Well, that's one of them. It
Mhm.
drops every Tuesday and Friday through Spotify or wherever you like to get your podcast from. Also on YouTube at Talk TV 24. One of my YouTube channels. That one focuses on podcasting, and that's where we put this one for a video, even though it's just like the cool artwork. And then also up the middle is I got to get back to that. I've with everything with radio, and one of the shows that just went live on Yergz Radio. It's going to be 3 weeks today since I put an episode for that out. So that's the project for the afternoon.
And
Once we
that's
get
where
these
you
edited
started
and
this
ready to
whole thing,
launch.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's actually
And
still doing
you
well, good up climb. So,
you want to
and that's also
mention
available.
your
Yeah.
daily radio
So
show at
Yerg's
5:30.
Radio, the most of what's on Yerg's Radio right now is automated. Be Inspired is on there. Both Sides Now is on there. Up the Middle's on there, but also 5:30 tonight and every weeknight 5:30 to about 6:30 or whenever I decide to shut up. I have a live show that we talk about, the things of the day. Clearly we're going to be talking about not only Ukraine but Israel
Yeah,
and why some people are supporting the war. Us going to help the war in Israel, but never supported the war in Ukraine. Why is one
right.
different from the other?
And you have a
Uh,
call
and
in
that's on
now
Yergz Radio. Just
opportunity.
Google it and you'll find it. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that?
And you have a call in now to
We
that.
do now. It's
That is
one.
so
It, it's
exciting.
yeah, yeah. I'm thrilled. Yeah, it's everything is. You want to get a hold of me? My name spelled with a Z. Yergz at yergz.com. That's the email. And
Awesome.
the phone number, if you want to call in tonight, is or any night because this is recorded, so nobody's going to get it till tomorrow anyway. But there
Right.
will be a Tuesday show and a Friday for whenever you hear this. It is 1-888-88 Yergz.
Nice.
1-888-88 YERGZ, and call and we'll have a chat.
That's awesome.
So
Okay, folks, for this
this
episode,
has been Both Sides Now. I'm
and I'm
Yergz,
Jane Stahl.
and we'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds good.